Hi, I'm going to do a series of short videos showing tricks you can do with some of the new experimental stuff I'm working on. This is the Symmetry Polyhedra build, and you get this new panel which you can activate via this button. This button, I usually dock it to my wand like that. This button also activates a tool. You can see I've got a slightly different tool there, and the button on the controller also takes you through various snapping angles. So you can draw, let's say I was drawing a cube, I could snap it to 60 degrees. And then end up with cubes at reasonably relative angles. I'm not totally happy with the way snapping works, but you noticed it went to edges. I'm going to choose a different brush because the Polyhedra look particularly nice with a whole brush, as you can imagine. You've also got a choice of how much to blend in. There's a kind of colouring algorithm that works on the shapes, but you can blend between that and your current chosen colour as well. For now, I'm going to just use my chosen colour, but you can see the colouring algorithm comes in quite nicely when you start doing more complex shapes. On simple shapes, it just makes everything yellow. I'm going to add more controls for that at some point, but it's more UI stuff, and I always put off doing that. So let me just erase those. Oh, one thing to note, they come ready grouped. Even though these are made up of multiple strokes, they come as grouped faces, and you can ungroup them if you want to take them apart. This was going to be a short video showing one thing. Oh well, I'll just keep rambling on. The more I overthink these videos, the less likely I am to actually do them. So let's just go with it. Let's get rid of that. I've got a nice shiny hole brush. I'm going to choose a small brush size. And I'm going to switch back to the Polyhedra tool. You've got to keep... annoyingly, you can't change the brush size at the moment in Polyhedra mode, so you've got to switch back to the brush tool if you want to change your brush size. I will fix that. So I've got 60 degrees snapping on, and as you can see, the shiny hole brush gives these quite nice results. Oops, I've changed the snapping. Let's go back to 60. Yeah, snapping is definitely a bit confusing. But it's hard to get right. So, oh, it's also a bit glitchy. Like it didn't end up drawing that quite the angle I had planned. That's just a bug that I need to fix. So that's a cube. Let's try modifying the cube. I'm not going to go into what all of these do at the moment. They do get a bit... There's a whole world of stuff in here that you can just do so much with. I'm not going to do much, but I'm going to choose a modifier called Loft that's basically like Extrude with a few extra controls. And you can see now, instead of a cube, I'm getting this more complicated shape. This is where the color blend slider comes in a bit more handy, because if I go back to the multicolor mode, it's coloring these faces differently based on whether they're the sides of the extrude or the center bit. And if I stack another Loft modifier on that, you can see you get some quite interesting patterns. You can start to see how complicated this can get. I mean, there's 3 pages of modifiers there that do various things, and a set of filters that enable you to apply those selectively to some faces. So the amount of kind of crazy shapes you can come up with is huge. And that's just starting with a cube. We've also got loads of different categories of shapes, like grids and hexagonal grids, and stuff. So not only can you create these shapes, you can rebrush them as well. It's often fun just to muck around rebrushing existing shapes with different patterns. I'll do a video where I actually make something that's not just a big mess soon. It's quite good for kind of weird alien vegetation and plant life and organic shapes, but I haven't really planned ahead, so I'm just making a big mess at the moment. Let's have a look. Let's just clear the mess up, actually. I'm going to do this, but with a big brush, because I picked a very small brush for that, and it's not actually that useful. Be a good example, actually. Have a look what you get with the whole brush. With different brush size, you can see the brush size gives a bit of depth to these shapes. If I go back to the cube, can't really see there, but that's a kind of beveled cube. If I make the brush even bigger, oops, I've got to turn that off to be able to change the brush size. Let's choose a nice big brush. And you can see these cubes now are kind of a bit more rounded. If you chose, where's one of the new experimental brushes is the smooth hull. And that can give quite a nice effect with some of these shapes. Oops, forgot to turn the tool back on. Okay, that's a bit much, but let's turn color blend. Let's give it something like that. So yeah, it's messy because of the overlapping faces, but you can get a variety of effects from very crisp geometric right up to kind of blobby organic forms. Now that I've made that with a thicker brush, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier about rebrushing. Probably a bit too thick, actually, that brush. But let's try a few different brushes. Bubble one's always good fun. Yikes. What else often gives good results on this? Oh, good old hypercolor. Hypercolor's always good fun. And I can never remember where it is. Yeah. Not sure how useful that will be other than giving people a headache, but it shows some of the interesting results you can get. Oh, Lightwire. Lightwire does actually tend to want quite a small brush size. Let me try something. Let me try doing something with a smaller brush size. It's often trial and error to get a good combination of brush size, and it varies from brush to brush. So, there we go. That's quite nice. Not sure about the colour choice, but let's go for a bit more like that. And let's go for something a bit more complex. Oops, keep forgetting to put the tool back on. There you go. And if we rebrush that, if we want to see what that's like as a solid, we can just go back to the whole brush and rebrush that. What's actually quite nice sometimes is mixing, don't rebrush the whole thing. Especially if there's a nice geometric pattern, you can pick out particular sections of your shape and only rebrush some of them. I was hoping I could do alternate phase. There is no alternate set here that won't overlap. I could choose alternate clusters. Let's choose. I've had a bit more kind of difficult to get. You've got to be quite careful. Yeah, I can't select just the faces I want. Oh, yes, I can, because I can do it that way. That's quite an interesting section. So I could choose just these kind of pentagrammic forms and rebrush those and leave light wire in the hollows. Often reveals some kind of symmetries you weren't aware of in your shape. See, I'm just filling in all the gaps now I'm doing this. Yeah, okay. I didn't think this one through. But you get the idea. Mix and match different brushes and different parts of your shape. It would be really nice if you could go back to the shape and change the modifiers and recreate it, but I haven't done that. That's going to be a bit of work because I'd need to store the parameters somewhere on the shape so that if you save and load the scene, they're still there. The other thing people have asked for is presets for these, so you can, if you find a nice shape, you can come back and find it. Because once you stack up, you know, a bunch of different modifiers and complicated base shape parameters, there's a lot of stuff to remember. Just doing a screenshot of this helps, but unfortunately all you get up here is the icons. I haven't got text labels, so ideally would have like a save button that saves a preset disk, and then, you know, a way of loading up your saves, but then you're going to want thumbnails and all kinds of stuff. So it's a ton of work, and I haven't done it yet. I do apologise. Trying to think of more practical uses for this. I did a nice demo scene where I stuck a video up that was an underwater scene where I used grids to give me seagrass patterns with trails and blobby shapes as kind of sea anemones and starfish. And I've done trees and forests by kind of jittering grids to give tree trunks. The other big feature, other than drawing the shapes by dragging out, is that you can use these as custom mirrors. Now, obviously, that's going to be a really complicated one. Let's remove a couple of these modifiers. So here's a... I'm just going to go back to a normal brush. So for this, you want to have custom mirror turned on and the Polyhedra tool itself turned off. Because what we're going to do is use whatever shape I've got selected here as a custom mirror. Now, because there's no easy way to scale the grid, it's easiest to scale the scene. You can move the grid if you want to start putting shapes down in other places. So as an easy way there of getting kind of regular uniform arrangements, so I could just paint, just going back to a sensible scale, and just paint like that, and you can see you really quickly get kind of nice symmetrical patterns. if I choose a shape that's got rotational symmetry, then you can draw. Let's just clear the scene again. Oh, I wasn't expecting it to be this way round. Hold on. Let's put it that way round. The mirror tool's a bit funny about... I need to check out the logic it uses for stopping you rotating. Don't worry, I'll leave it as that for now. I can't easily change the angle at the moment. Now, you've got a nice radial pattern there based on the faces, and I could go back in and erase the ones I didn't really want. The ones pointing outwards. But there's another way of doing that, actually. Let me take it down a bit so it's easier to see. This is a good use case for filters. I could actually, before I use it as a mirror, I could ask it to remove the faces I don't want in my mirror. So I'm going to choose a modifier called face remove. And I'm going to filter that to only remove 5-sided faces. Oops. There we go. So now you can see the preview's got the 5-sided faces at the top and bottom missing, and that means my mirror tool also has got those faces removed, so I don't get the unwanted brush strokes coming out at the angle now. So you can quite easily see how this could be an interesting way of creating lots of natural forms. One problem I haven't quite decided how to solve at the moment is my colour slider has been told to take its colours from the shape, but the original one stroke always uses your main chosen colour. It was difficult to fix that because the way Tilt Brush sets up, it assumes your original stroke is always going to be the main colour, and it was tricky to change that. So at the moment, until I figure out a better way of doing it, just recolor the brush or something, or pick a colour that's closer to the colours you're getting from this. This will be a lot more useful when you can choose colours. My ideal is that there'd be a nice colour palette setting so that the colours you get from this are kind of more controllable. But at the moment, it's just got this kind of nice reddy orangey palette. But it's just, it's just nice to be able to have a variety of colours. When you're creating loads of strokes at once, you quite often don't want... you want a kind of colour distribution that's sort of a bit varied. So the other idea I had was a brush that recolours with a bit of randomness. I'll do a video on my colour jitter tool later. That's a very simple change that just randomly varies each stroke you make. But I'd also like a tool where you can jitter existing brush strokes randomly by just, in the same way the recolor tool works, it would just recolor with some random variation. So there's a bunch of stuff to do with kind of adding color variation that I want to add in. The symmetry tool doesn't group these, so if I wanted to treat these as a single group, then I kind of would want to select them and group them myself first. But once you've got them like that, you can start creating patterns like this. I'm not very steady-handed. Oops. Another tool I'd quite like to do is a tool to let you distribute selections over paths and strokes. But for now, it's quite easy just to do this kind of thing. So yeah, nothing you couldn't have done by hand, but it's a lot faster to do it like this. I think I'll leave it there because I never intended to cover most of this. I was going to do a short video on one particular feature or technique, but I just ended up rambling on. But I'll just do a few more videos like this. Cheers.